It is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker today, Dr. Satsuki Ina. Dr. Ina is a psychotherapist specializing as a community trauma consultant. She is also an award-winning documentary filmmaker and is a co-founder of Tsuru for Solidarity, a group working to support immigrant and refugee communities being targeted by inhumane immigration policies and to put an end to the present-day detention sites. Please welcome one of our community heroes, Dr. Satsuki Ina.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today in the cold. I want to dedicate my few words here and call up the spirit of Sue Kunitomi Embrey, whose spirit and light has made it possible through her tireless efforts and a symbol of truth, justice, and democracy. She's been an inspiration to me all my life. Frank Emmy was a Heart Mountain resistor. He fought for the right to refuse a draft while he was imprisoned. He ended up serving 18 months in a federal prison along with other Heart Mountain resistors. One of his statements was, "No more shikata ga nai." I know that's true because I saw it on a t-shirt at Janum. No more shikata ga nai. It's time for us to take this message to heart, that each of us may feel the anger and despair about what's happening in our country. And what's happening is personal. It's you and me. It's Japanese Americans. It's people of color. We are once again being targeted with oppressive and repressive policies and practices that will essentially lead to the destruction of our democratic country. We have a history that was modified and distorted by authorities that said those who protested were enemies of the state. Those who protested the injustice of their incarceration was an act of disloyalty. But in recent years, scholars, academics, students, teachers have uncovered the false narrative and has shown us that we had many dissidents, many protesters, many organizers inside of those prison camps. And they resisted. And this is a legacy that we must reclaim today. The Alien Enemies Act of 1798 was actually a Pandora's box of worsening, expanding the oppression and the injustice and racism that resulted in the incarceration initially of our Iseis. That act stated that without due process, those considered a threat to national security could be removed immediately. Within days of Pearl Harbor, our Iseis were removed to secret sites unknown for days and weeks before we could discover where our fathers and grandfathers were sent to. The Alien Enemies Act also then made it possible, with Roosevelt's expanding wartime powers, to begin arresting and removing not just aliens, but non-aliens, American citizens. 125,283 people of Japanese ancestry were taken from their homes. They lost their jobs, their education, their wealth, resulting in decades of the transmission of trauma that we're still dealing with today. After the executive order, then was the loyalty questionnaire. The loyalty questionnaire was imposed on all of us who are incarcerated, saying if you didn't register to sign the loyalty questionnaire with a yes, yes, or no, no, it's stated in government documents that because of the Alien Enemies Act, you would be charged with 10 years in prison and a $20,000 fine. And then, in 1944, Public Law 405 was then passed that led to the renunciation of citizenships for over 5,000 people who were incarcerated. It was determined that this renunciation was illegal because it was forced under duress, and yet thousands of Japanese Americans who had never been to Japan had been deported after they renounced their citizenship. So today, the Alien Enemies Act is once again a Pandora's box of even more despicable violation of human rights. We heard yesterday that a judge was arrested from defending an immigrant in the middle of the courtroom. People are being targeted because they look like they're immigrants. We are faced with what is, in fact, without a doubt in my mind, a fascist regime, hell-bent on a nationalistic, racist policy of redeeming white supremacy and eliminating those considered unwanted. Of the 223 Venezuelan men that were removed to prisons in El Salvador, journalists have just reported that only 30 of those men had any affiliation with the gang. And that, in fact, the criteria for removing these people was because of their tattoos and, I quote, the appearance of wearing baggy clothes. This is irrefutably a racist policy, and it will lead to more and more legislation, policies, practices that will successfully lead to the loss of our democratic principles. Our history gives us the moral authority and the imperative to stand up. We need to, each of us, make a commitment to, one, tell our stories, to talk about the long-term consequences of the incarceration, of the injustices that have lasted for generations. We cannot stand by as our history is erased, as our history is repeated again and again. there is a story of these demoiselle cranes. They're the smallest birds, the smallest species of cranes. And it's said that they have to cross over the Himalayan mountains to escape the winter in China and Russia. But they're so small that they have to gather at the base of the Himalayan mountains until enough of them arrive, so that together they can increase the loft, their ability to rise up 5 miles high to cross over the mountains to their resting place. It's like the demoiselle cranes that each of us gather together our strength, our determination, our history to fight what is happening to other targeted groups, and that could turn to one of us again. It took one sentence for the president to say, this coronavirus is caused, this kung flu is caused by people who look like you. And suddenly, randomly, we're the enemy again. I want to share with you these posters that show how intertwined our history is with what's happening today. And we want people to start thinking about, what can I do? We can give you examples. We need to fight to stop the continued multiplication of detention sites. The intention of this administration is to remove and incarcerate 11 million immigrants, 500 detention sites, and they're popping up all over. During the first administration, there were efforts to make these detention sites at sites where Japanese Americans were held. Fort Sill in Oklahoma, Fort Bliss in Texas. Even the Pomona County, what they called detention site, was being considered to hold children. It is our voice that can actually lead this protest. We need to speak loudly. We need to educate people about our history. And we need to organize together. And if that means going to a PTA meeting and talking to people about protecting our libraries from being altered, if it means going to a supervisor's meeting, a town hall, where you speak up as a Japanese American, as a descendant, as a survivor, as a friend, as an ally, to say that you protest the continuation of the efforts of this administration to disappear us. We must all say, no more shikata ga nai. Thank you. Thank you so much.